Hey guys, welcome back. Most dog owners use the commands leave it and drop it, but the ironic part is they usually get it wrong. Okay, and I think it's just a lack of understanding, and that is going to be today's topic. So, how complicated can the argument or the discussion of what's the difference between a leave it and a drop it command actually be? Well, I guess really leave it is ignore that and focus on me. Where drop it is you've already got it, now give it to me. Okay? That's it. It's that simple. One prevents and one releases it back to you. So I always talk to my clients it's either pre mouth or post mouth. And the way you handle it's completely different. Okay, so what what confusion do people have and what kind of problems does it start off with when you start maybe thinking of leave it and drop it as the same thing? I see it all the time. People will have a dog who on a walk will grab something, and once the dog has it in their mouth, they start yelling and screaming, "Leave it, leave it, leave it!" And I'm kind of like, "Hey, look, that boat has sailed. The dog's already got it." Okay, so as we said before, I think it's kind of important to realize as the dog is approaching something you don't want them to have, or you know they're going to make a bad choice. That's where we're going to say, "Hey, leave it." The dog will turn around because we've taught them to and come back. I would argue that leave it is just a fancy version of recall or come when called. It's just, but you got your eyes set on something, but I want you to come back to me. So it's a lot harder than a regular recall, okay? Whereas I think drop it is going to be more in the scheme of things, a fancy way of talking about trade. So you have that, and I know you want it, and I know you like it, but I'm not going to be silly enough to try to fight fire with fire and take it away from you. I'm going to try to teach you throughout your entire life that if I have something of equal and equitable trade value, I'll give you this and you give me that, and now everything's good. It's really not that complicated. But if you get them mixed up, it's going to really mess with the way things are done. And when we get to the idea of drop it, which is where most people will sometimes see growling or reactivity or, God forbid, aggression, is because somebody has tried to wrestle something away from them. It's one of those things we have to teach the dog that, hey, look, that's wrong. You can't have that. You can have that. Give me this. And then we have to do a better job of managing the situation. I think honestly, if you start early enough, I think drop it's easier to teach than leave it in some cases. But because we spend so much time taking things out of dogs' mouths when they're young, it kind of ends up as a situation where a certain percentage of dogs are just like, no, you're not going to do that. You're not taking it away from me. And that's when I start getting phone calls and, hey, the dog had something that was dangerous. I tried to take it away. I got bit. I needed to know that this dog will never do that again. Well, I would argue that maybe the way you've been handling it up till now has taught the dog the only way to keep something of value is to guard it. Okay? Okay, let's take the first one. Let's talk about leave it and how we can start teaching it. The very base way of teaching that is having a treat in your hand. Okay? And I'm going to have availability of treats with this hand here in a minute. But I'm going to put the treat in my fist and I'm going to put it down, and the dog is going to sniff it, and I'm not going to release my hand. And the minute the dog either looks at me or moves away from my hand, I'm going to offer them the treat over here. And they're going to come over and get the treat. Now, after I've got the dog kind of doing it, I can start adding the word, or here's the treat, leave it, you can have this one. And we'll kind of do this. Now, I like after doing this, maybe putting it on the ground, and I'm going to cover the treat with my hand, and I'm going to say leave it, and I might throw the treat at the very beginning. So now it's leave it means go over there and get it. And I'm tossing it so the dog gets the idea of moving away from my hand. Okay, eventually I'm going to do it, and I'm going to say leave it. And the funny thing is, if you do this, you're going to notice the dog starts looking at your other hand when you say leave it. So I'll quit paying attention to this hand covering the treat, and I'll start coming over here and getting it. After we've done, the fist covering it, the next one I like to do is put a treat on the ground and cover it with my foot. And then I'm going to say leave it and toss the treat away to where the dog goes, oh, well, I'll just ignore your foot and go get that treat. Okay. And we'll repeat that process for a while. Eventually, when I say leave it, the dog will look up at me and I'm like, oh, good job. And I give them the treat. So they quit looking at my foot and they looked up at my face, and that eye contact's what get them the treat. Okay. So you can see we're doing this in small, easy to digest stages so that I don't have to wrestle a dog or challenge a dog, okay? So we start with the fist, we start with our hand on the treat, then we put our foot on the treat. At this point, we've taught the dog to look away from the treat and get rewarded, but it's really not leave it yet. So the next step is I will have the dog on leash, and I will have a friend who will go out in front of me and drop a pile of treats on the ground, and I will use the leash not to correct the dog, but just hold on and not allow them get to the treat. The pile of treats, excuse me. And what'll happen is I'll say leave it, and my hand will drop to my side. Okay? That literally is the hand signal for leave it. It's also the hand signal for come and called. It's also the hand signal for releasing out of a stay. I use it on walks every once in a while. When the dog is pulling, I'll stop walking. My hand drops to the side. But this is the first time we really incorporate a good hand signal where if you see my hand on the ground, in fact, a lot of trainers might even consider this a touch command, okay? Where I teach a dog to target my hand. And that's really what we're doing here. But to get back to the leave it idea, I've got the dog on leash, a pile of treats out in front of me, and I'm saying leave it. Now, if you're lucky, that dog's going to turn around, see your hand right there, give up that pile, and come back to you. And congratulations, you just did your actual first leave it command. Now, what do you do if the dog is so enamored with that pile of treats that they won't even pay attention to you? You got two choices. The first and the easiest is I say leave it, and I'm trying to work on a hardwood floor. I probably should have said that first, but let's work on linoleum, hardwood, a hard substrate floor. Because if the dog won't pay attention, I'm going to take the treat and drop it on the ground, and that click hitting the ground, the dog's probably going to turn right around and come back and get it. And I can use that as my first step to get the dog to come back to me away from the pile of treats. If the dog still won't turn, I want you to just calmly, slowly, gently start walking backwards, applying a tiny bit of pressure to the dog with the leash so that their head swings around and you go, hey, it's right here, dude. And the dog comes to get the treat once they see it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. If you have done a good job of working with, the treat in the fist and covering it with your hand and then moving to the foot and then going to the idea of a pile of treats in front of you, you're going to be successful with this. I find that most people who are not successful are trying to skip steps. And again, this is just like teaching math. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEDMAS, whatever you want to call it. But I have to go in a certain order of operation. If I skip steps, I get lousy math scores. Okay, if I skip steps, I get a dog who doesn't pay attention. This is all about just simply, hey, give that up and come to me. You're teaching the dog that you are more valuable than the other distractions in the world. So that's a really easy little 4-step process on how you can, in your house, start working on a leave it. Now, keep in mind, eventually you're going to have to take this outside and work it in the backyard or on the patio. And then in maybe the backyard with a 15-foot long line. Maybe we're trying to con our neighbors into letting their dogs out so they can be on the other side of the fence and I can practice a leave it command. But that's way down the road. I'm just kind of looking at the very beginning here. So those would be your first basic steps to teaching a leave it. Come back. We'll talk about drop it next. Okay, so we kind of got a basic idea. Leave it. What about drop it? And I mean, I'm serious here. They're kissing cousins. They're really close, but they're not the same. I think the most important thing to do is to start this when the dogs are young and they're easier to train. A dog who's already a resource guarder, I'm just going to tell you stop watching this video and get hold of a good positive reinforcement trainer. Because, yes, some of the same ideas are going to be used, but you're going to have to be really careful if a dog who's already resource guarding and we're dealing with that. But very beginning is toys. Okay, I love buying toys in pairs. So if I go out and buy a purple dinosaur, I end up throwing two in the basket. If I buy a red tennis ball, I get two red tennis balls. And I've always got them out so my dogs have good chew toy options and they are chewing on appropriate items, not my couch or my shoes or me or anything like that. But if that dog has the purple dinosaur, I'm going to walk up with the other one and go, here, you take this one, let me have that one, and we'll trade. And I might do the same thing when I see him with a bone. I'm going to have another bone out to where I have an equal and equitable trade value of, hey, if you have this, I'll give you this. I can use food too, but this is where you're trying to learn what your dog considers equal and equitable. If they've got a chew toy or they've got a fluffy toy, and I walk up with a liver treat and I say, hey, let me have that. You can have the treat. And I always hand them the toy back. But I'm getting them into the mindset of, you give that up, I'll give you something, everything will work out fine, and in the end, you'll probably get it back. Now, in certain cases on a walk, if it's roadkill or if it's something dangerous, they're not going to get it back. But at the beginning of the teaching phase, we need to make sure it's easy and the dog understands this is not losing a valued item forever most of the time. Sometimes it will. We can also look at some really classic dog training games. If I play fetch, a lot of people will tell me, well, the dog will go out and get the toy but never bring it back. Or the dog will run out and not bring it. Well, first of all, don't throw it so far. Start really small. And number two, always play again. That's why I buy two sets of toys. Is I want it set up to where if I throw the tennis ball and you come back, I'm going to show you that other tennis ball and go, you want this one? And when they drop it, that's when I'll throw the new toy. Then I pick it up, they come back, and I start teaching them, well, drop that and I'll throw this. Drop this, I'll throw that. The other aspect would be tug. You can kind of do the same thing when you're playing tug of war with the dog. Now, I do think it's important that tug of war not become an out of control game. So my rules are simple. You have to sit to say please. I'm then going to hold the toy out and go, not yet, you can't have it. Okay, get it. And then we're going to tug, and then I'll reach out and grab a treat, and I'll say drop it. I give them a treat, and then I'll reset the game, and I'll say please. They have to sit. I'll give them the toy after they waited a little bit. We tug for a little bit, and I say drop. And then we kind of, so the game never gets totally out of control. I've seen some guys get so excited they're lifting the dog off the ground with the toys. They're shaking it till the dog is growling, things like this. And while some dogs can handle that kind of play, some dogs can't. And I certainly don't want to start there. But if I'm using fetch and tug the right way, I can teach my dog it's part of the game to give up the item. Okay, that's how the game continues. Another thing that I love to do with dogs, and this would be starting more in the end, not in the situation of a resource guarder or a reactive dog, but something I call a no-no bucket. Okay, so if I have an old remote control that shoots craps, I throw it in the no-no bucket. If I get a new cell phone, the old cell phone that's broken goes in the no-no bucket. Kids with retainers, if you've got a broken one, throw it in the no-no bucket. Anything that's stinky, I might put a pair of socks in there. You name it, I'm putting it in there. Now, as we have gotten further along in the training, once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, I will pull that no-no bucket out, and I will put the stuff on the ground and go, nope, you can't have that. And that's, when you look at it, this is probably the first time I'm kind of combining the idea of a leave it and a drop it. But I am getting the dog used to not going after something, or if they do going after it, me practicing getting them to give it back. And I'm using those items that might become bugaboos throughout the house of dog always chews on remote controls, the dog's always grabbing napkins, the dog's always grabbing towels. I can then work with those items and make them more normal or desensitized and less valuable than somebody running around like they're a chicken with their head cut off, chasing the dog, yelling and screaming at them, which is going to elicit a negative response. So you've got a little bit of an idea how you can work with your dog with leave it, how you can work at it with drop it. So obviously the reason why do we need to practice these things? Well, it should be pretty obvious from the things that we've been talking about, okay? If you don't, and the dog grabs something, how are you going to get it back? You can use a leave it with all sorts of things. Even when a dog's going up to a house guest, getting ready to jump on them, I can say leave it and get them to come back. And it's funny, in that example, I get people all the time, well, I don't want the dog not to like people. I don't want to use leave it. Well, that's because you got a bad mojo about the word leave it being negative. But if the dog comes back to me, I'm giving them a treat whenever they're around a new person in the house. They're not going to dislike that person. They're going to like that person because good things, treats fall from the sky when I'm around. But leave it could be used on a walk when we're looking at squirrels, other dogs, people walking, the mailman, loud trucks, weird things. Leave it's great. Drop it is going to be important when the dog gets things that can hurt them or are dangerous on a walk, and they grab a empty booze bottle that somebody threw out on the curb, or a cigarette butt, or the dog grabs paper towels and runs off. I mean, let's face it, anybody who's watching this video who's had to take their dog to the vet with an intestinal blockage of anything from underwear, bras, t-shirts, blankets, stuff like this, it's not a cheap experience, okay? It's expensive. So when a dog has something that's dangerous, I need to have done enough practice that when I do go in, I need to come in calm, and I need to have a reward involved. And this is, okay, another little dog trainer tip is when I'm working with somebody, I tell them to go out to Walmart and buy a little flip top container that you would keep, coffee or flour or sugar in. And I'll just fill them with dog food, or I'll fill them with treats, depending on how much of a resource we need, so that it's available quickly. Because if I have to run 3 rooms away to get the treats and come back and try to trade the dog, that's never going to happen. So treats need to be available, but you also need to realize if you've trained a dog from day one to drop it on command, by the time something like this happens, you're probably not even going to need a treat. It's going to be, give me that, let's go throw it away, you did a good job, let's go get a treat, okay? And you can start modifying it, but you can't use that kind of technique when the dog doesn't understand the game. So, as long as they don't consider it a value that is, you just can't give up. I mean, let me kind of end this video with a really funny story. Years ago, I trained a woman who had a Rottweiler named Jake, and Jake was huge. He was probably 110 pounds. He's a big old boy. He looked like the demon dog in all the horror flicks, but he was the sweetest dog on the face of the planet. One day I get this panicked phone call, and it turns out that Jake had come in through the dog door, because he was allowed to go out in the backyard to go to the bathroom through a dog door, and he had brought in a dead squirrel. And the owner we had worked on Drop It recently, either in one of the group classes I taught or in a private session. And she was trying to trade a piece of kibble for a dead squirrel. Now, I say that, and everybody's probably giggling watching this video or listening to the podcast, but it just didn't click into her head that there had to be an equal and equitable trade value, and a dead squirrel is pretty valuable. And a piece of kibble, well, that's not very good. I'm not giving up the dead squirrel for that. And here I am on the phone with this client while all of this chaos is happening in her house, and she's completely freaking out. And, I kind of go, okay, do you have a Johnsonville brat in the refrigerator? And she grabs the Johnsonville brat, and I hear the thunk, and Jake dropped the squirrel right then and there. She goes, okay, he dropped it. What do I do? And I'm like, throw the hot dog or the brat out in the backyard. I said, shut the dog door to where he can't come in, and now you got to deal with the dead squirrel. And it dawned on her after we were talking later. It's like, okay, I just needed to have something better. If you do have one of those dogs, a lot of times a toy, okay, we were talking about fetch earlier. If your dog is a game player, games and toys may be way more valuable than food. So I may keep a special squeaky toy up on the mantle. And that is our trade toy. If I have a dog who's orally fixated and always got to have something in their mouth, to where if I see them grab something they should, instead of me running over and trying to take it away and challenging the dog, I just grab a squeaky toy and just squeak, and they drop whatever's in the mouth, they come over, grab it, I grab the other item in there. So a lot of this is working around the problem instead of going straight at it, but the training is to pretty much go straight at it so that you don't have to go around. Hopefully that made sense. But I do think a lot of people get confused with leave it and drop it and thinking that they're similar commands, and they are. But one is pre-mouth, one is post-mouth, and you got to have an equal and equitable trade value. In the case of leave it, you're what's more valuable because you have all the rewards. So I'll give that up and come back to you. And with Drop It, it's going to be more the case of, hey, I'll give this to you because you're going to give me something fair. Okay, cool, we got this. And we go. So I'm sure this brings up some questions. Let me know. Email us. Go through the website. Go to however you're getting this information and leave a message. And let us know what other topics you'd like to cover. Hopefully this helps a little bit. This is that point where I beg and plead. I should have done it at the beginning, and my editor's going to yell at me. But please, if you like this stuff, subscribe. As cheesy as it sounds, it does help a lot, and it helps us keep moving forward with all the different formats that we use, the podcasts, the videos, you name it. Okay. Give us some love. We'd really appreciate it. You guys have a great day. It's Mike with Kiss Dog Training. We'll talk to you later.